Hi, welcome back to the Reset Room, your sanctuary to pause, reflect, and reset. I'm SO, and in today's episode, we're diving into the many forms of boundaries we need to thrive, not just survive. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt totally exhausted but couldn't point to why? Or been angry at someone without fully understanding what line they crossed? It might not be about a big argument or even a blow up. It might just be a boundary leak. See, boundaries aren't just about saying no to people. They are about saying yes to what protects, respects, and restores you. And today, we're unpacking 6 key types of boundaries, some of which might surprise you. By the end of this episode, you'll not only know your boundaries, you'll feel more confident setting and keeping them. So let's get into it. Right, most people talk about boundaries like they're just verbal, something you say to others. But boundaries aren't just what you say. They are also what you allow, what you accept, and what you model. And here's what's wild. You could be great at one type of boundary and terrible at another. For example, you might have some solid physical boundaries, but struggle to protect your emotional space. That's why naming and understanding different types of boundaries is so powerful, because clarity is empowerment. So let's walk through the 6 types together. And as I go through each one, I want you to reflect. Where am I thriving here? And where am I leaking energy? The first boundary that we want to look at is emotional boundaries. Let's start with this one because it's one of the most essential and most commonly violated boundaries, the emotional boundaries. So emotional boundaries protect your right to have your own feelings without being guilted, manipulated, or shamed for them. Having emotional boundaries means not allowing others to dump their emotions on you without consent, not taking responsibility for someone else's mood or reactions, not being gaslighted or told you're too sensitive when you express how you feel. Here's a personal story. I used to have a friend who would call me every time they were in crisis. And at first I felt helpful, like I was being a good friend. But over time, I started to dread their name on my phone. I felt drained, not because I stopped caring, but because I didn't have boundaries. Eventually, I had to say to them, I care about you deeply, but I can't always be the one to process everything with you. Have you considered speaking to a professional about this? Was it uncomfortable? Yes, it was. Was it necessary? 100%. That was me protecting my emotional bandwidth, and it changed everything. Again, this does not take away from or mean you stop being there for your friend or someone you care about. It's about recognizing that a supportive friend shouldn't mean you're always the one absorbing everyone else's emotional overflow. You're not the default cleanup crew for other people's feelings. The second boundary I want us to look at is physical boundaries. See, physical boundaries are the limits you set around your body, personal space, and physical touch. They are fundamental to feeling safe, respected, and in control. Very crucial. But let's be honest, physical boundaries often get overlooked or dismissed. We are taught to be nice, to hug when someone expects it, to tolerate close talkers, to stay in conversations even when our body is screaming, get me out of here. Here's the truth. Your comfort matters. Physical boundaries include who is allowed to touch you and how, whether or not you want a hug, handshake, or physical affection, how close someone can stand to you, whether someone can enter your home, your room, or even borrow your things. Your need for privacy, personal space, or rest. Sometimes physical boundaries are violated unintentionally. That's understandable. But that doesn't make this discomfort less real. You're allowed to say, that's too close for me, or I'm not comfortable with that kind of touch. It can feel awkward, especially if the other person doesn't mean harm. But boundaries aren't about judging someone else's intent. They're about protecting your own sense of safety. And let me say this gently. You don't owe anyone physical access to you just because you are close to them. Not a partner, not a parent, not a friend. And physical boundaries don't just apply to extreme situations. They show up in the everyday. Saying, I need a little space when you are touched out. Telling your child or your partner, please knock before entering. Choosing to sleep alone because your body needs rest. Taking time away from crowded environments if they overwhelm you. All of these are acceptable ways of setting physical boundaries for yourself. Here's what people forget. Even in close relationships, family, friends, romantic partners, you're not obligated to surrender your physical boundaries. When you honor your physical boundaries, you begin to rebuild trust with your body. And that's where safety begins. This includes saying no to hugs or physical contact you are not comfortable with, needing personal space and time alone, feeling safe in your environment, deciding who enters your room, your home, or even a conversation about your body. So, I'll give you this coaching mantra. When it comes to your physical boundaries, say this to yourself often. I can love you and still need space from you. My body is not a negotiation. All of this doesn't mean that you become less affectionate. It just means you begin to set aside time for your body to recover, for your boundaries to be respected. The third type of boundary I want us to look at is the time boundary, because time boundaries are sacred. See, time boundaries are about protecting how you spend your hours, your attention, and your availability. They help you stop overcommitting, overfunctioning, and over-apologizing for needing time to just be. Let me ask you something. Do you say yes when your calendar is already screaming no? Do you feel guilty for resting, like you should be doing more? Do you feel like you're constantly rushing, juggling, or running behind? That's not always poor time management. Sometimes that's boundary issues. Poor time boundaries often sound like saying yes to every invitation, or letting meetings run over constantly, or working past your limits without breaks, feeling guilty for wasting time when you rest. And I want to be clear about something. Rest is not a reward. It's a requirement. Good time boundaries sound like, I have 20 minutes for this call. I'm available after 6 p.m. I need to reschedule. I'm overcommitted. That is what setting good time boundaries sound like. And what time boundaries actually looks like is not replying to messages immediately, even when you've read them. Doesn't mean you're rude. Saying, I'm not available for that this week, and not offering a full explanation. Ending a meeting on time, even if the other person wants to keep going. Blocking out rest, creative time, or nothing time, and treating it as non-negotiable. Giving yourself buffer time between commitments so you are not rushing or burned out. See, time boundaries are often the hardest for those of us who feel responsible for everyone else. Because you're always thinking, they will be disappointed. They're counting on me. It's easier to just squeeze it in. But here's the truth. Every time you override your own time limits for someone else's convenience, you teach your nervous system that your needs can wait. And over time, you stop trusting your own rhythm. Because without time boundaries, burnout becomes your baseline. You start waking up tired. You go to bed wired. You cancel on yourself constantly, and the resentment builds quietly. But here's the shift. You are allowed to protect your time like you protect your health. Because time is actually health. The moment you start honoring your own time, the world starts adjusting around you. Time boundaries aren't about being rigid or selfish. They are about aligning how you spend your time with what actually matters to you. And the beautiful part, when you start honoring your own time, people learn to honor it too. So when it comes to your time boundary, I'll give you this coaching mantra. Remember this. Every yes I give is a no to something else. So I want my yeses to count. I don't have to earn rest. I'm already worthy of it. The sixth boundary I want us to look at. I want us to talk about the boundaries no one sees, but you definitely feel. And that's the energy boundary. See, energy boundaries are about protecting your emotional, mental, and physical capability or capacity. Because your energy isn't infinite. It's not a free refill either. And you are not a generator for everyone else's needs. Energy boundaries go hand in hand with emotional and time boundaries, but they are even more subtle. This is about protecting your vitality, your capacity to show up for life, not just survive it. So ask yourself, who drains who? Who drains you? Even when they are not saying anything negative. What activities leave you depleted or restored? Do you feel like you're always on, even when you're alone? What energy boundaries protect you from could be the friends who call to unload every single crisis, the meeting that's always running over, or that family member who subtly drains you with criticisms or guilt, or that scrolling habit that leaves you feeling empty instead of inspired. The guilt you feel for not being on or available 24/7. And the list goes on and on and on. These are the things that energy boundaries can protect you from having one. Here's what no one tells you though. Sometimes the things draining your energy isn't what you are doing. It's what you are tolerating. Real energy boundaries sound like, I love you, but I don't have the capacity for this conversation right now. It could also sound like, I need some quiet time before I can respond. Or, I'm not available for back-to-back meetings anymore. I'm logging off now to recharge. I can't give you my full energy today. Can we check in another time? So these are all forms of showing real energy boundaries. You are not being dramatic. You're not being cold. You're just taking responsibility for your energy economy. Because when you're drained, you're not fully present. And when you're not present, you're not connected to yourself or to anyone else. You don't owe everyone access to your energy. You're not a battery pack for other people's chaos. So here is a coaching truth I'll give to you. You're allowed to manage your energy like it's a sacred resource. Because the truth is, it actually is. See, energy boundaries create inner peace. They create emotional clarity, a healthier nervous system. It creates more meaningful relationships, and it gives you that space to hear your own voice again. And maybe most importantly, they return you to yourself. Because when your energy is protected, your authenticity flows freely. You are not editing yourself for others. You're simply being. And that's where power, real power, lies. So I give you this coaching mantra. If this resonates, I want you to say this out loud or write it down and use whenever you need it. My energy is mine to give, not theirs to take. Saying no is how I make space for a wholehearted yes. The next boundary I want us to look at is the mental boundary. Let's talk about a type of boundary that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. And this is the mental boundary. These are the boundaries that protect your right to think for yourself, form your own opinions, and hold space for your beliefs, even when they don't match the people around you. This is about protecting your thoughts, opinions, and your right to disagree. And if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling unheard, invalidated, or emotionally hijacked, this one is for you. We live in a world where disagreement often feels unsafe, especially with people close to us. But healthy mental boundaries mean you can hold your own beliefs, even when others don't agree. You can exit a debate if it becomes too toxic. You are not forced to justify every decision you make. Mental boundaries could sound like, I see it differently, I don't want to engage in that kind of conversation. I'm still forming my thoughts on this. I'd rather not debate it right now. I respect your view, but I'm going to hold a different one. So these are all ways in which mental boundaries could manifest itself. It's about protecting your cognitive space from being overwhelmed, dominated, or dismissed. Mental boundaries help you to stay grounded in your values and your own perspectives, even in the face of pressure to conform to others or to explain yourself. And where mental boundaries matter most, they matter most in emotionally charged conversations around politics, religion, identity, or deeply personal beliefs. When someone tries to change your mind through guilt or force. When others invalidate your experience with phrases like, "That's not what happened," or "You're overreacting." These are times when mental boundaries really matter. Mental boundaries don't mean you stop being open-minded, though. They mean you give yourself permission to filter what you take in and decide what aligns with your truth. So I'll give you another coaching mantra here. Let's pause it right here quickly and just think through this. And if it resonates, I want you to say it out loud again or write it down and use it whenever you feel the need to. I'm allowed to think differently and still belong. My mind is not up for persuasion just because it's different. Let me share a quick personal reflection. There was a time I'd stay quiet in group settings, not because I didn't have thoughts, but because I feared judgment. I'd nod along even when I disagreed, and then overthink it for hours later. It wasn't until I realized that my silence wasn't keeping me safe, it was erasing me. Mental boundaries taught me that I don't have to match the room to belong in it. I can honor my own truth, even when it's quiet or unpopular or even evolving. That's what freedom feels like. Mental boundaries create confidence in your voice. They create emotional clarity, even in disagreements. And they create room for internal reflection. Safety in being fully you, even when you are misunderstood. And let's be honest, some people will still try to blur your mental boundaries because they feel threatened by your clarity. That's okay. That's theirs to manage, not yours to carry. Your mind is your sanctuary. Not everyone gets a key. Mental boundaries are essential for protecting your inner voice. That intuitive guide that tells you who you are and what you value. The last boundary I want us to look at in today's hyper-connected world, it's called digital boundaries. They're non-negotiable. We don't talk enough about it, but we should, because The moment you pick up your phone in the morning, the world starts pulling at your attention. DMs, group chats, notifications, requests, unsolicited opinions. And if you're not careful, you go from being connected to being consumed. Digital boundaries are about protecting your mental space, emotional energy, and right to disconnect without guilt. This includes not responding to messages instantly, muting or unfollowing accounts that trigger you, setting app limits or screen-free zones, protecting your privacy and emotional safety online. You don't have to be accessible 24/7. That kind of availability is not the same as love. So what does digital boundary actually protect you from? It protects you from feeling obligated to reply instantly, or being triggered by online comparison or toxic content, or constant interruptions from messages or work notifications, or even late night scrolling that leaves you overstimulated and undernourished. The pressure to share, respond, react, or stay in the loop. So let's pause for a second and reflect on this. You don't have to earn rest by staying online. Your peace is not found in your notifications. You can note those down to go over frequently and when you need. So what might digital boundaries look like? They might look like turning off push notifications, not checking emails or messages after a certain time, muting or unfollowing accounts that drain your energy, scheduling social media breaks or deleting apps temporarily, having a digital Sabbath, one day offline a week, or even just a morning. And let's be honest, sometimes it's not even the messages, it's the mental load of being too accessible. Just knowing someone can reach you 24/7 can be draining. Some of the mental and emotional benefits of setting digital boundaries could be better sleep. You just get better sleep, and that is very valuable. You could also have less comparison and self-judgment. It can provide more mental clarity. It can lower anxiety for some. And essentially, ultimately, it gives more time for real rest and to reconnect with yourself. So let's pause here quickly for some personal reflection. There was a season where I felt I had to be available, especially in my work. I had this bad habit of bringing work home. And what that meant was I was always online doing something. And I'd wake up and check my messages before I even checked in with myself. Eventually, I realized I was giving the world my attention before I gave myself my presence. So I started putting my phone on a table far away from my bed at night. I stopped replying to messages immediately, and I created a new rhythm. Connect with self, then with others. And this changed everything for me. Digital boundaries aren't about rejecting the world. They're about choosing when and how you engage with it. You are allowed to pause the noise, log off, and return to you. The world can wait. So now you've got the full picture. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're sacred. And each type, emotional, physical, time, energy, mental, and digital, they all help you return to yourself. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, overlooked, or overextended, chances are one of these boundaries needs strengthening. And that's not a failure. That's an invitation. An invitation to choose yourself, not in opposition to others, but in devotion to your own peace. Take a moment to reflect, reset, and realign. Okay, if this episode has helped you reconnect with your boundaries, please like, share, and subscribe to stay rooted with us in the Reset Room. Coming next, we'll be looking at how to set boundaries without feeling like a bad person. So please hit the bell icon to get notified when this drops. And hey, please drop a comment, share with us which type of boundary do you need to strengthen most right now. Until next time, protect your peace, honor your limits, and remember, you are your first home. This is the Reset Room, and I'm glad you're here. See you on the next one.